Good morning, high schoolers. Today is week 4 of our series Explained. So this will be our last week in the series, and we're going to shift gears next week, which is exciting. And so far, we've been learning a lot about the Bible and how it needs context, and that some passages don't quite make sense, but it's important to dig in and keep understanding. And last time, I think we were talking about having those verses in our head, and then it can apply to different situations, and how cool the Bible is that you might be like reading something now that doesn't really make sense, but in a couple years, it'll come back to mind. It'll be perfect for whatever situation you might be in. So, today, we're going to keep talking about the Bible. And for this one, it's kind of about how sometimes it feels like the Bible isn't all it's hyped up to be. Like people talk about the Bible a lot. It's the number one bestseller of all time. So it's kind of this question of like, is it really that great? And maybe for you, the Bible hasn't really delivered what you were told that it was supposed to deliver. It's not all it was hyped up to be. Maybe you've heard the Bible described as like this guidebook or like an instruction manual with all the rules in it, or a place to find the solution to all of the problems that come up in the world. Maybe questions that you have about life. People have said, "Oh, the Bible has the answer to that." And maybe you feel like the Bible should be like Google, right? You can just Google it. But we know that isn't true, right? We can't just scroll the Bible like we can Instagram or TikTok. And it definitely can't tell us anything about COVID, right? It's not going to spell out COVID is this, right? It doesn't specifically address those kind of topics. So how could it possibly have something to say to us about our lives today? Um, Sometimes it seems like the Bible answers questions we're not asking. Like it'll answer what to do if there's conflict among church leaders. Not a question I usually ask, right? It also tells us how the nation of Israel was formed, which is great. And I love history, but not the questions that are on my mind right now. It even tells us who Jesus's great 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 grandpa was. So that's pretty cool, but also not something I was curious about. So sometimes it seems like it answers a lot of questions that we're not asking. And it kind of leaves out all of the questions that we are asking. Like maybe we're asking, when will I have a boyfriend or girlfriend? My first one, or maybe, my next one. I don't know. It depends on the situation you guys are all in. Maybe you feel like it doesn't answer the question, how can I get my little sister to stop bothering me, or little brother, or older? That works too. And it definitely doesn't feel like it's going to answer why schoolwork is exhausting and stressful. And I know that's a big one for us, especially now. So it just feels like the Bible doesn't have that answer. And it leaves us wondering, like, if the Bible doesn't really answer my questions, then is it really useful? So obviously, we're in church. No one's going to say, nope, it's not useful at all. And every church has some people in it who would confidently say the Bible's changed their lives. So what do they have that we don't? Like, what is it that we are missing? Sure seems like we're missing something in that. Um, so that's what we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about right there, is what we feel like we're missing. So to get answers for that, we're going to look at the Psalms today. We're going to see a couple verses from Psalms. This is a collection of poems and songs. So remember, we have to think context. This is not like a history written down. This is a song. This is a poem. It has like wisdom in it, great little reminders, and a great understanding of who God is and like what we should do. Beautiful, beautiful little prayers from different people throughout history. A lot of them written by David, but not all of them. And it talks about like their experiences with God and the different circumstances that they're under. So let's take a look at Psalm 119. This is actually one of the longest this is the longest psalm. And so it ends up being the longest chapter in the Bible. So if you want to read the whole thing, it's pretty long. We're going to just focus on one little verse. In Psalm 119, verse 105, it says, "Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path." I'm going to read that again. "Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path." So we all understand light. We get the idea. We know the good that it serves. Nobody wants to drive at night without headlights. Nobody wants the electricity to go out. I sure don't. And nobody likes to try to find their way to the bathroom in the middle of the night without turning on a light. When it's dark, light makes all the difference. So, what the writer is saying here is that God's word is a light for the path of our lives. So, we're hitting that metaphor. Gotta love those metaphors. And it's great, but it also tells us what it's not, right? It's the headlights, but it's not a GPS. So, there's a difference here. God's word is like a headlamp, but not a map. God's word is like a flashlight, but not a survival guide. Okay, so look at that distinction. I think that is huge. Do you see the difference there? A map or a GPS, an instruction manual, all those things would tell you exactly where to go, but the Bible doesn't do that. The Bible lights up where you are and shows you what's up ahead. I think this is a great visual. It shows you what to watch out for, but it doesn't always tell you the exact answer, which is usually what we want, right? So a light illuminates your path so that you're better equipped to make the best choice. And I think that's what the Bible does too. Really illuminates what's ahead so that we're better equipped to make the best choice. It helps us connect all the different pieces in our lives. And because of the Bible, we can see a lot more and a lot more clearly, and then move forward and make the best choices. So the Bible brings things to light. That's really simply what it does. So instead of seeing the Bible as like an instruction manual or a rule book, look at it like a light that guides you. It's a light on your path as you keep taking steps forward, as you move into your future. It just helps you navigate. And when things feel uncertain and scary and confusing, it helps you make that best decision. The light does not force you to go a certain way. That is super important to see. The light doesn't force you to do certain things, but it's helpful and it helps us make sure that we don't stumble into trouble. So it's helpful way before we even need it. A little earlier in the psalm, remember I said Psalm 119 is the longest one. A little bit earlier, the writer says, I have hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. That is how we need to use God's word, not like just a genie, magic 8 ball, Google Maps, or some instruction manual that we only turn to when we need a specific answer or we're desperate for help. Instead, it's a light that is turned on ahead of time and it's hidden in our hearts. It's tucked away in our mind and our memory. And when something comes up, we're ready to use it because we've already studied the word. We've already hidden it in our heart. We have it for when we need it. So when we hide God's word in our hearts, we're prepared to make the best and wisest decision possible. And we end up avoiding trouble. We avoid hurting ourselves. And we avoid hurting others. Okay, so that's why we want to store up God's word in our heart. And at some point, we're all going to face decisions where we need answers. And it will be tempting to try to treat the Bible that way, to just Google it and search out our answers. But it can actually lead to a lot more confusion. On the other hand, when we use the Bible as a light and a lamp, we get to see that bigger picture. The entire path ends up illuminated, and it doesn't mean that immediately all of our questions get immediate answers, but it does mean that we see all of life a lot more clearly. Here's the thing. The Bible's something you have to spend time with. I'm skipping slides there. It's something you have to spend time with. In order to store it up in your heart, you have to spend some time in the Word. If you want to learn anything, you want to learn a musical instrument, you want to learn a new video game or whatever, the lyrics to the new song, you have to spend some time with it. And it takes time. The more time you spend with it, the more you know, and the Bible works the same way. So the more you use it as a light, the more you see that the Bible is best understood that way, that it's not an instruction manual, that it's a light to show you what's ahead. It helps you correct things before they go wrong. This happens when we learn from the experience of the people written about in the Bible. We learn from choices they make. We learn what wisdom looks like by reading about their lives. I'm going to pause, which I think I can do. Hang on just a second. So the Bible being something you have to spend time with, here we go. It invites us to observe what happens on its pages and then live our lives in response to what we find there. Over time, we discover that it influences the decisions that we make. The more you spend time with it, the more you have it in your heart, the more it will influence the decisions you're making. So practically speaking, what does this look like and what do we do from here? So a couple easy steps to really spend time with the Bible and start using it as that lamp for your life. Number one, read a passage from the Bible for 10 minutes. Like focus on one small part. Or sorry, any part, right? John's a good place to start, but you can also do the devotions that are linked on the virtual page. Click the Bible and you have a devotion for each day. The Psalms, other Gospels, Proverbs, those are great places to start. If you spend 10 minutes each day, if you dedicate that time, and you, as you're reading, you can learn from that and just kind of store that in your heart. You can observe from the writer's life what they're talking about, and you can learn a little more about God. And then after you've done that, talk to someone about what you read. That helps us remember things better if we can talk about it and have a conversation and agree and disagree and learn more from each other. And maybe it's your small group leader, could be your parents, could be a different trusted adult. There's just talking about it and asking a question about it really, really helps store it in your heart. It's never meant to be something you do on your own. When you invite other people in to do it with you, they can help you understand the Bible and how it's relating up your own life. And then last but not least, memorize it. This was our challenge last week too. Pick a verse and commit it to memory. When you start memorizing these verses, it's kind of like if you decided to pack a flashlight for a camping trip, just in case you might need it. When you memorize a verse, you're tucking something away so that when a certain situation pops up in your life where you're super stressed out or scared or worried or trying to make a decision, that verse will come to mind and really encourage you in that moment. I understand that memorizing does not sound fun, but it's a dare, it's a challenge. Try to do it and see if that doesn't come in handy. I bet that it will, and I bet that you already have situations where a memorized verse has come in handy. So again, overall, the Bible brings things to light. It's not a map. It's a flashlight. It's a headlamp, right? It brings things to light. It shows you what's up ahead. Over time, it's going to illuminate the entire path of your life. And that's why people in our church talk about how the Bible's changed their life, because it's been that light for them. And yes, it can be confusing and very tricky at times, but anyone who has learned to play an instrument or learned to play a sport can tell you that it takes time and it was tricky in the beginning. We have to put in the time in order to see the benefits. So we've got to put in the time. And when we use it like it's meant to be, it can make our lives bigger and better. So the overall question that we kind of leave at the end of this series is, are you willing to stick with it until it begins to light up your life? And I promise you that if you do, you'll be glad that you did. So that's the end of our series Explained. And I will see you guys next week with our new series. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. And yeah, see you in a week.